I need a husband and you need strong daughter, the giant widow declared to the struggling cowboy. Jack Turner had been riding the dusty trails of the countryside since dawn, his old horse moving slowly but steadily under him. The sun had just begun to rise, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink, but for Jack, there was little time to admire it. His ranch had been struggling for months. The past season had been rough. The rains had been unpredictable, and the crops had barely survived. Each day, Jack woke with the weight of worry pressing on his shoulders. He wasn't just fighting for his livelihood. He was fighting to keep his small dream alive. Jack was a man of simple habits. His clothes were worn but clean, his boots scuffed from years of work, and his hat slightly bent from constant use. His face, tanned and lined from countless days under the sun, carried a quiet determination. He wasn't a man who talked much. Words were for those who needed them, he often thought, while actions spoke louder. But inside, Jack's mind was always restless, thinking of debts, repairs, and how he could make his ranch survive another year. That morning, as Jack guided his horse along the familiar trail toward the town, he noticed a figure standing in the distance. At first he thought it was a stranger passing by, but as he got closer he realized it was someone he had heard of but never met. Eleanor Hayes, the widow of a well-known rancher from the neighboring county.
Eleanor was a woman who commanded attention wherever she went.
Even from a distance, her tall figure and strong posture were impossible to miss. Her long dark hair was tied neatly, and her clothes, though simple, carried a sense of authority. She wasn't just tall. She seemed larger than life, someone who could fill a room without saying a word. Jack slowed his horse as he approached. Eleanor had been standing in her yard, looking over the land that had belonged to her late husband. There was a certain intensity in her eyes, a mix of determination and something unspoken. Rumor had it she was looking for someone to help her manage the ranch, someone dependable, someone who could take on responsibility. And now, standing in front of him, she was all at once intimidating and compelling. "Jack Turner?" Eleanor called out, her voice carrying across the small distance between them. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I need a husband, and you need a strong daughter." Jack blinked, taken aback. He wasn't used to people speaking to him with such bluntness. The words sounded almost like a challenge, and for a moment he wasn't sure if she was joking or serious. But the look in her eyes told him she meant every word. I'm not sure I understand," Jack said cautiously, shifting in his saddle.
Oh!
Eleanor's lips curved into a small, confident smile.
I don't have time for small talk.
"My husband is gone. My ranch needs someone capable, and my daughter needs guidance." "You, Jack, could fill the first two." "The third. Well, that's up to you." Jack felt a mixture of curiosity and hesitation. He had never been a man to shy away from hard work, but this was different. This wasn't just helping with chores or repairing fences. This was taking on responsibility for another person, a whole family. And yet, somehow, the challenge intrigued him. "Why me?" he asked, his voice steady but cautious. "Because I've seen you work," Eleanor replied simply. "I've heard how you manage your ranch, even with all its troubles. You're strong, reliable, and you don't give up. That's what I need. And if you accept this, Lucy will benefit from it too. She needs someone steady in her life, someone she can trust." Jack glanced around, noticing the land stretching before him. Dialogue. The ranch was large and beautiful, but it had clearly been neglected for some time. Fences were broken in places. The barn looked weathered, and the fields needed attention. It was a big task, maybe bigger than anything Jack had faced in a while. Yet, something in him stirred. I liked challenges, and there was something honest about Eleanor that made him believe she was serious. "I'll think about it," Jack said finally, though even as he said it, he felt a flicker of excitement. Eleanor nodded. "You have until sunset to decide. After that, I'll find someone else. I don't wait long for indecision." With that, she turned and walked back toward her house, her tall frame moving with purpose. Jack watched her go, feeling a strange mixture of apprehension and curiosity. This was unlike anything he had faced before. He had lived a life of solitude and struggle, but now a new challenge had presented itself. Not just survival, but connection, family, and perhaps even belonging. Over the next few hours, Jack rode back to his own ranch thinking about Eleanor's words. The idea of guiding someone, of helping a young girl like Lucy seemed daunting. He had never had children of his own, and the thought of stepping into a maternal figure's world was intimidating. But he couldn't deny that there was a spark of hope in it too, a chance to do something meaningful beyond just keeping his ranch afloat. When he arrived home, the small cabin he lived in seemed emptier than usual. The wind rustled through the trees, and the quiet was almost too loud. But Jack went about his chores, feeding the animals, checking the fences, and repairing the roof of the barn. Yet his mind kept returning to Eleanor and the bold challenge she had given him. "I need a husband and you need a strong daughter," he repeated silently. The words echoed, strange and powerful, like a call to something bigger than himself. Days passed, and Jack found himself returning to Eleanor's ranch, initially out of curiosity and then because he felt a sense of responsibility forming. He watched as Eleanor worked tirelessly, moving with strength and grace across her property. Her daughter, Lucy, was no less striking, full of energy, curiosity, and a stubbornness that reminded Jack of himself in his younger days. Lucy was cautious around him at first, watching silently, her eyes sharp and assessing. She had learned to rely on herself after her father's death, and strangers were not immediately trusted. Jack's first task was simple, yet revealing: repair a broken fence near the edge of the property. Eleanor observed him closely, occasionally offering instructions. Lucy stayed close, silently watching, sometimes pointing out areas that needed attention. At first, the interaction was awkward. Jack was used to working alone, and Eleanor's assertive presence was intimidating. Lucy's sharp gaze and questioning attitude added another layer of tension. But slowly, as the day wore on, Jack began to see the potential in this unusual family. Eleanor's strength and determination were matched by her kindness and fairness. Lucy's independence and intelligence were tempered by a need for guidance and trust. Jack realized that his skills, his patience, his hard work, and his understanding of the land could help not only the ranch but also the people who lived there. By sunset, Jack had repaired the fence, and the three of them stood together surveying the work. Eleanor nodded approvingly. "Not bad," she said simply. Lucy gave a small, reluctant smile. Jack felt a warmth in his chest, a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time, the sense of accomplishment not just in work, but in connection. That evening, Jack rode home slowly, the sun sinking low behind the hills. He thought about the challenge Eleanor had given him, and the opportunity it represented. Breaths. The idea of taking responsibility for someone else, of becoming part of a family, was intimidating, yes, but it was also invigorating. For the first time in months, Jack felt a spark of hope. He knew the decision wouldn't be easy. Accepting Eleanor's proposal meant stepping into unknown territory, facing challenges he had never imagined. But as he looked at the horizon, he realized that life had a way of surprising those who were willing to take a chance. And perhaps, just perhaps, this bold widow and her strong daughter could become the family he hadn't known he needed. The next morning, Jack saddled his horse with a sense of determination. He was no longer just a struggling cowboy fighting to keep his ranch alive, but he was a man standing at the edge of something new, something that promised growth, connection, and perhaps even love. And as he rode toward Eleanor's ranch once more, he felt ready to face whatever challenges awaited him, knowing that this unexpected encounter might change his life forever. The next morning, Jack woke earlier than usual, the pale light of dawn slipping through the cracks in his cabin. For the first time in weeks, he felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Today, he would return to Eleanor Hayes's ranch not just as a visitor, but with the thought of taking on a role that could change his life. He quickly dressed, packed a small lunch, and saddled his horse. The familiar rhythm of routine helped calm his mind, but the thoughts of Eleanor and her daughter Lucy lingered like a gentle storm at the edge of his mind. As Jack rode along the dusty trail toward Eleanor's property, he could see the tall outline of the house and the barns against the rising sun. The yard was already alive with activity. Eleanor moved with confident authority, checking the fences, inspecting the crops, and calling out instructions to her small crew. Lucy was nearby, chasing a young calf that had wandered from the pasture, her laughter ringing across the open space. There was energy here, a life that was vivid and full, and it pulled Jack in, almost against his will. Eleanor noticed him as soon as he arrived. Her eyes, sharp and unwavering, held his for a moment. She nodded slightly, a small sign of approval, and then turned back to her work. Jack dismounted and began tending to the animals near the barn, careful not to intrude too quickly into the rhythm of their day. He wasn't sure how to approach Eleanor after their conversation the previous day, but he knew he had to show that he was serious, willing to work and willing to commit.
Jack! Eleanor called after a while, her voice firm but not unkind.
Brass. I want you to start with the north field. The fence there is broken, and we've had a few stray cows wander off. Fix it properly this time. No shortcuts. Desperate. Jack nodded, understanding the weight of her expectations. This wasn't a simple job. It required skill, strength, and attention to detail. He grabbed his tools and made his way to the north field, his mind focused on the task. As he worked, he noticed Lucy watching him from the edge of the field. Her eyes were curious, sharp, and skeptical. She didn't say a word, just observed, as if trying to measure his worth before deciding whether he belonged. A morning passed with Jack hammering posts, mending wire, and checking each section carefully. Eleanor occasionally came by to inspect his work, offering small corrections or adjustments. She was exacting but fair, and Jack appreciated her clear expectations. Lucy, however, remained a silent presence, following him from a distance, her attention never wavering. By noon, the sun had climbed high, and Jack wiped the sweat from his brow. The fence was sturdy, straight, and well constructed. He stepped back, feeling a sense of pride. Eleanor approached, her boots crunching softly on the dirt, and nodded.
Good work,
she said simply. Better than I expected. Lucy stepped forward this time, a hint of a smile on her lips. Not bad, she said, her voice carrying a mixture of approval and mischief. Jack couldn't help but return the smile, feeling a spark of connection forming. It wasn't a full acceptance yet, but it was a start. Eleanor clapped her hands. Now, we eat. Jack, come with us. She led them to the farmhouse, where a simple but hearty meal was waiting. The kitchen smelled of fresh bread and cooked vegetables. Eleanor had set the table with care, and Lucy immediately took a seat, still watching Jack closely. During the meal, conversation was cautious at first. Jack listened more than he spoke, answering questions about his ranch, his work, and his life. Eleanor shared stories of the land, her late husband, and the challenges she faced raising Lucy alone. Lucy, initially quiet, began to ask questions too, testing Jack's patience and sense of humor. You really know how to handle horses? Lucy asked suddenly, her eyebrows raised. Jack chuckled. I've been riding since I could walk. Horses are honest creatures. They don't lie, and they don't cheat. You treat them well, and they'll treat you well in return. Lucy's eyes sparkled. We'll see about that. Maybe you can ride with me later. I bet you can't keep up. Jack laughed, feeling lighter than he had in a long time. There was a playfulness in Lucy that reminded him of simpler times, of the joy in small victories and challenges.
He realized that guiding her wouldn't just be about authority, it would be about respect, patience, and shared experience.
After lunch, Jack accompanied Eleanor and Lucy to the pastures. Lucy eagerly hopped onto her horse, while Jack mounted his own. Eleanor gave them instructions on the tasks for the afternoon, checking the fences, herding the cattle, and ensuring the water troughs were full. Jack could see Lucy's energy and skill as she moved the horses with precision and confidence. It was clear she had inherited her mother's strength and determination. As they worked, Jack found himself learning as much as he taught. Lucy's insights, though youthful, were sharp. She noticed weaknesses in the fence, areas where the cattle could escape, and even suggested ways to make the work more efficient. Jack admired her intelligence and courage, realizing that guiding her wouldn't be about control but about partnership. By late afternoon, the sun began to dip, casting a golden light across the fields. The work was done, the animals were secure, and the fences were strong. Eleanor walked over to Jack, her expression unreadable at first. Breaths. Then she smiled, a rare and genuine smile.
You're doing well, Jack.
I think we can make this work. Lucy approached, standing close to her mother. She looked at Jack with a mixture of respect and curiosity. I think I can trust you, she said softly. It wasn't full acceptance yet, but it was a start. And Jack knew it was the most important step of all. As they walked back to the farmhouse, Eleanor spoke quietly to Jack. I'm not looking for a hero. I'm looking for someone steady, someone reliable. Lucy needs guidance, yes, but she also needs patience and understanding. Can you do that? Jack nodded. I'll try my best. I've managed my own struggles, and I can help both of you. It won't be easy, but I'm willing to do it. Eleanor's eyes softened. That's all I ask.
Evening settled over the ranch, and the three of them sat outside watching the sun set behind the hills.
The air was warm but gentle, filled with the sounds of nature, the lowing of cattle, the rustling of leaves, and the occasional bird calling in the distance. For a moment, all three of them were quiet, taking in the beauty of the land and the peace of the moment. Jack felt a sense of belonging he hadn't experienced in years. The struggles of his own ranch, the loneliness, and the constant worry seemed lighter here. Eleanor's presence was strong but not overbearing, and Lucy's energy was vibrant but not overwhelming. He realized that this was the kind of life he had been missing, one where effort was shared, where guidance and support were mutual, and where challenges could be faced together. As night fell, they went inside the farmhouse. Eleanor prepared a simple dinner and Lucy helped set the table. Jack noticed small habits that revealed the rhythm of their lives, the way Eleanor managed the household with quiet authority, the way Lucy moved with independence but still sought approval, and the way the three of them gradually formed an unspoken understanding. After dinner, they sat around the fireplace. Eleanor spoke of her late husband, of the dreams she had shared with him, and of the responsibilities she now carried alone. Jack listened, feeling a deep respect for the woman's resilience. Lucy, curled up with a blanket, listened as well, her eyes reflecting both curiosity and admiration for the man who had entered their lives so unexpectedly. Jack realized that the challenge Eleanor had presented was more than just practical work. It was a test of character, patience, and heart. Guiding Lucy would not be simple, and helping Eleanor rebuild her ranch would not be easy. But the potential rewards, connection, family, and shared purpose, were far greater than the risks. That night, as Jack lay in his small room at the farmhouse, he thought about the day. The physical work had been tiring, but the emotional engagement had been invigorating. He felt a sense of hope he hadn't known for a long time, a sense that perhaps this bold widow and her strong daughter could become the family he hadn't realized he needed. He made a decision then, quietly but firmly. He would stay, at least for now. He would help Eleanor with the ranch, guide Lucy with patience and care, and see where this unusual arrangement could lead. It wouldn't be easy, and there would be challenges ahead, but Jack felt ready. For the first time in years, he felt that he had a purpose beyond mere survival, a purpose that involved connection, responsibility, and the possibility of belonging. And as he drifted to sleep, the sounds of the ranch surrounding him, Jack Turner, the struggling cowboy, allowed himself to imagine a future that was brighter than the one he had known, a future shaped by hard work, mutual respect, and a quiet promise of family. The days at Eleanor's ranch passed with a rhythm that Jack was slowly beginning to understand. Each morning began before sunrise, the world still cloaked in soft shadows, and the air crisp with the scent of earth and animals. Jack would ride out to check the fences, feed the livestock, or repair equipment, while Eleanor moved through the ranch with practiced ease, her presence commanding and steady. Lucy was never far behind, her energy boundless, her curiosity sharp, and her determination clear in every step she took.
It wasn't always easy.
Jack quickly discovered that guiding Lucy would be a test unlike any task he had faced on his own ranch. She was smart, stubborn, and quick to challenge him at every turn. Sometimes she would question his decisions, sometimes outright defy his instructions. Jack had learned long ago to be patient with animals, but children, or teenagers, as Lucy was, were a different kind of challenge. Their defiance was intentional, testing the limits of trust and authority. One afternoon, Jack and Lucy were checking the northern pasture together. The sun was high, beating down with warmth that made sweat gather on Jack's forehead. He noticed a section of fence that had been damaged during a recent storm. The wood had splintered, and the wire was loose. Jack motioned for Lucy to stay back while he worked, but she immediately stepped closer.
I can help, she insisted, crossing her arms.
I know how to hammer posts, Jack smiled faintly, shaking his head. It's dangerous. You could get hurt. Let me handle this part. Lucy pouted but didn't argue further, though her eyes followed his every movement. Jack worked carefully, replacing broken posts and tightening the wire. He realized how much he had underestimated her sharpness and attention to detail. Lucy noticed even the smallest flaws, and her corrections, though sometimes blunt, were usually accurate. By the time the work was done, the fence was stronger than it had been in years. Eleanor walked over from the farmhouse, observing from a distance. Good work, she said to Jack, then looked at Lucy with a mix of pride and amusement. And you, young lady, are learning quickly. Breaths. Maybe faster than he expects. Lucy grinned, a little embarrassed but clearly pleased. Jack couldn't help but feel a warm satisfaction. For the first time, he saw her not as a challenge, but as a partner in the work that kept the ranch alive. As the days continued, Jack found himself slowly earning Lucy's trust. It wasn't immediate or easy. There were moments of tension when she challenged his instructions or teased him about his methods. There were moments of frustration when he struggled to balance Eleanor's expectations with Lucy's independence. But gradually, through shared work and quiet conversations, a bond began to form. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the hills, Jack found himself sitting on the porch with Lucy, watching the horses graze in the fading light. She was quieter than usual, her usual bravado replaced by a thoughtful expression. Bed. Jack, she said softly, do you really like being out here? On a ranch? Jack thought for a moment before answering. I do. It's hard work, yes, but it's honest work. You see results and you know your effort matters. Out here, you're responsible for things that depend on you. That's worth a lot. Lucy nodded, her eyes reflecting the colors of the sunset. I get that. Sometimes it feels like no one really notices my effort, though. Desperation. My mom, she notices, but it's never enough. Jack turned to her, surprised by her honesty. I notice. And I think your mom notices more than you think. But it's also normal to feel that way, especially when you're growing up.
You're strong, Lucy, and strong people sometimes have to work harder to show it.
She looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and admiration. For the first time, she seemed to see Jack not just as a visitor or helper, but as someone who understood her. The next challenge came when a group of wild cattle broke through the western fence. Jack and Eleanor were quick to respond, but Lucy insisted on helping, despite Jack's initial hesitation. The three of them worked together, guiding the animals back into the pasture. It was chaotic, exhausting work, but it revealed something important. Lucy was capable, smart, and brave. Jack began to see her not just as a child to guide, but as someone who could teach him new ways to handle challenges. Over the next few weeks, Jack became more integrated into the daily life of the ranch. He repaired fences, fixed broken gates, and helped with the harvest. He learned the routines, the habits of the animals, and the rhythms of the land. Eleanor trusted him more with each passing day, giving him responsibilities that went beyond simple labor. Lucy, though still testing him at times, began to look for his approval and advice. The tension that had marked their first encounters slowly shifted into mutual respect. One evening after a long day of work, Eleanor and Jack sat on the porch while Lucy played nearby. Eleanor spoke quietly, almost as if sharing a secret. Jack, she said, you've done more than I expected. I wasn't sure if you'd be able to handle Lucy's challenges, or even mine. But you've done well. You've shown patience, understanding, and a willingness to commit. That matters more than anything. Jack looked at her, feeling a mix of pride and humility. I'm just doing what I can. Breaths. It's not easy, but I see what you built here, and I want to help maintain it. Eleanor smiled, a small but genuine smile. That's all I needed to hear. Lucy came over holding a basket of freshly picked vegetables. Dinner's ready, she announced. There was a quiet sense of normalcy in the moment. The sound of the wind, the smell of the fields, the warmth of the home. Jack realized that this was what he had been missing. A sense of belonging, a connection, and the feeling that his efforts mattered not just to him, but to others. As the evening settled in, Jack reflected on the journey so far. The work had been hard, the challenges many, but the rewards were beginning to show. Best. Eleanor's confidence in him, Lucy's growing respect, and the quiet moments of connection all pointed to something meaningful forming. A bond that was more than just necessity, more than just survival. It was family, in the making, built not by blood but by trust, effort, and shared experience. But the real test was yet to come. Jack knew that the future would bring tougher challenges. Storms that could damage the fields, unexpected problems with the livestock, and the emotional complexities of forming a true family. Yet he felt ready to face them. With Eleanor's strength guiding him and Lucy's spirited energy challenging him, he realized that together they could handle anything. The next morning brought another test. A sudden thunderstorm had damaged part of the roof on the barn, and the cattle were restless in the rain-soaked pastures. Jack, Eleanor, and Lucy worked through the storm, securing the animals, patching the roof, and moving supplies to safety. Both of these, despite the harsh weather, proved her courage and skill, following Jack's instructions carefully, and even suggesting solutions he hadn't considered. By the time the storm passed, the three of them were soaked, tired, and muddy. But the sense of accomplishment was stronger than ever. Eleanor looked at Jack and Lucy, pride evident in her expression. Breath.
You both did well, she said. I am glad to see you working together. Jack, looking at Lucy, felt a deep sense of satisfaction.
She was no longer the distant, skeptical girl from the first day. She had become a partner, a young person he could guide and learn from at the same time. But he realized that this was exactly what Eleanor had meant when she spoke of needing a strong daughter.
Lucy had strength and he had responsibility. Together, they were building something important.
The days continued in this rhythm. Work, learning, guidance, challenges, and moments of quiet connection. Jack found himself thinking less about his past struggles and more about the possibilities ahead. Eleanor's ranch was no longer just a place of labor. It had become a place of growth, learning, and unexpected joy. Lucy's trust and respect had become a reward greater than any paycheck or harvest. And as night fell each day, Jack would sit quietly, reflecting on the journey so far. He had come to Eleanor's ranch as a struggling cowboy, unsure of his place in the world. But now he could see the beginnings of a family forming, one built on trust, mutual respect, and the willingness to face life's challenges together. He realized that the bold words Eleanor had spoken on that first morning, "I need a husband and you need a strong daughter," were not just a challenge, but a promise of connection, growth, and something more meaningful than he had ever imagined. Jack knew the road ahead would not always be easy. There would be moments of conflict, misunderstanding, and difficulty, but he also knew that the bond forming between him, Eleanor, and Lucy was strong enough to endure these challenges. And in that knowledge, he found a sense of hope, purpose, and belonging that he had not felt in years. By the end of the third week, Jack, Eleanor, and Lucy had settled into a rhythm that worked for all of them. The ranch was running more smoothly, the fences were sturdy, the livestock were secure, and the home was filled with the sounds of life, laughter, conversation, and the occasional teasing. Jack felt that he had finally found a place where he belonged, a family he could be part of, and a purpose that extended beyond himself. The bond between Jack and Lucy was still growing, but it was clear that trust had been established. Eleanor watched with quiet satisfaction, knowing that the first major step had been taken. The challenge had been met, the connections had been made, and the future, while uncertain, seemed brighter than ever. Jack Turner, the struggling cowboy, had faced the first real trials of working with Eleanor and Lucy. He had faced challenges, earned trust, and begun to form bonds that promised a stronger, richer life ahead. And as he looked out over the ranch, the sun setting behind the hills, he allowed himself a small, quiet smile, knowing that the hardest work had been done, and the most rewarding work was just beginning. The morning air at Eleanor's ranch was crisp and clear, with sunlight streaming through the trees and casting long golden shadows over the fields. Jack awoke feeling a calm sense of purpose he hadn't known in years. The past few weeks had been challenging, tiring, and sometimes frustrating, but they had also been rewarding. The bond between him, Eleanor, and Lucy had grown stronger with each day, built on hard work, trust, and shared experiences. Today, he felt ready to face the next step, fully committing to this new family and the life they were shaping together. Jack saddled his horse and rode out to the fields, where Lucy was already tending to the young calves, her small hands busy but precise. Grasp. She looked up and waved when she saw him, her grin wide and unguarded. Jack returned the wave, a warm feeling spreading through him. There was no pretense between them anymore, no tension, no tests, only mutual respect and understanding. Eleanor appeared shortly after, her tall frame moving confidently across the yard. She watched Jack and Lucy for a moment, then called out, "Jack, I've been thinking. I don't just need help around here. I need someone to be part of this family, fully, and I believe you can be that person." Jack's heart skipped a beat. This was more than a request. It was a declaration, an invitation into a life that was bigger and more meaningful than he had dared imagine. He nodded slowly. I want to be part of this family. I've felt it for a while, but I wasn't sure. Now I know.
Lucy ran over, her eyes bright. So,
You're really staying? Like for good? Jack smiled, kneeling down to meet her level. Yes, Lucy. For good. I'm not just here to help. I'm here to be part of your life, too. She threw her arms around his neck in a sudden, surprising hug. Jack hugged her back, feeling the warmth and trust she had gradually placed in him. Eleanor watched quietly, a satisfied smile crossing her face. The three of them stood there for a moment, the morning sun casting a soft glow around them. The first real test of their new bond came sooner than expected. A severe storm rolled in from the north, dark clouds covering the sky and strong winds rattling the fences. Rain poured down in sheets, turning the dirt paths into slick mud and sending animals into panic. Jack, Eleanor, and Lucy immediately sprang into action. Jack ran to secure the barn, tying down loose equipment and checking the gates. Eleanor guided Lucy in moving the younger calves to a safer section of the pasture. The three of them worked as a team, communicating without hesitation, their combined skills and trust evident in every movement. Lucy called out suggestions, and Jack followed them, impressed by her growing confidence and intelligence. By late afternoon, the storm had passed. The ranch had suffered minimal damage, the animals were safe, and the fences had held strong. Eleanor looked at Jack and Lucy, pride evident in her expression. We did it, she said simply. Together. Jack, drenched and tired but exhilarated, smiled. I couldn't have done it without both of you. We really are a team. Lucy grinned, her earlier shyness gone. I guess I was wrong about you at first, Jack. You're not just strong, you're smart too. Jack laughed, ruffling her hair gently. I told you, we learn from each other. You've taught me a lot already.
That evening, after the storm had passed, the three of them gathered inside the farmhouse. Eleanor prepared a simple but hearty meal, and Lucy helped set the table.
The warmth of the fire, the aroma of food, and the sense of safety filled the house with comfort. Jack realized that this was more than a home. It was a place where trust, love, and belonging were growing stronger with every shared moment. As they ate, Eleanor spoke softly. Jack, I want you to know something. You've proven yourself not just as a worker or a helper, but as someone who belongs here. Lucy needs guidance, yes, but she also needs a partner in life. And Reef, I've found myself needing someone I can rely on. Someone steady. You've shown me that. Breath. Jack looked at her, understanding the depth of her words. He knew this was more than a practical arrangement. It was about connection, family, and love. I've seen what you've built here, Eleanor. It's more than a ranch. It's a home. Pious. I want to be part of it. All of it. I'm ready for the responsibility, and I'm ready for this family. Eleanor's eyes softened. Good. That's all I ever wanted to hear. Lucy, overhearing part of the conversation, gave a small, satisfied nod. So we're really a family now? She asked. Jack smiled, reaching out to hold her hand. Yes, Lucy. We are a family. The next few weeks were filled with the gentle rhythm of a life shared. Jack took on full responsibility at the ranch, working alongside Eleanor and Lucy. Together they repaired fences, planted new crops, and tended the animals. Lucy continued to grow under Jack's guidance, learning patience, strategy, and care. while also teaching him new ways to approach problems. Eleanor, confident and grateful, focused on managing the overall operations, but she was never far from their daily efforts. Jack found that being part of this family was far more rewarding than he had ever imagined. The long days of hard work were softened by laughter, shared stories, and moments of quiet reflection. Lucy's respect and trust in him deepened, and Eleanor's confidence in his character and dedication never wavered. Each challenge they faced, whether a broken fence, a sick animal, or a sudden weather event, was met together, and each success strengthened the bonds between them. One afternoon, while repairing a section of fence near the southern pasture, Jack paused to watch Lucy riding a horse with skill and precision. He smiled, realizing how much she had grown in confidence and ability. "You're amazing, Lucy," he said. She looked back at him, a wide grin on her face. "I couldn't have done it without you." Jack shook his head. "No, you did it all on your own. I just helped along the way." Lucy laughed, the sound full of joy and freedom. Jack realized then that the role he had feared at first, of guiding, mentoring, and protecting, was now one of partnership. They had grown together, learning from each other, and forming a bond that was unshakable. As evening fell, Eleanor joined them on the porch, the sky painted with brilliant oranges and purples. She looked at the two of them, pride and warmth in her eyes. "I've been watching you two all day," she said softly. "I couldn't be happier with the way you've handled everything, Jack. You've proven that strength isn't just about hard work. It's about heart, patience, and care." "Lucy, you've shown that being strong also means being willing to trust and learn. Together, you're unstoppable." Jack and Lucy exchanged a glance, a silent acknowledgement of the journey they had shared. They had faced storms, challenges, and doubts, and yet here they were, stronger, closer, and more connected than ever. As the weeks turned into months, life at the ranch continued with a steady, fulfilling rhythm. Jack fully embraced his role as part of the family, Eleanor and Lucy supporting him as he had supported them. The once struggling cowboy found new purpose in guiding, protecting, and nurturing the people he had come to love. Eleanor found a partner she could rely on, someone who shared not only the work but the dreams and hopes for the future. Lucy found a father figure, a guide and a friend who respected her strength and intelligence while offering steady support. The ranch flourished under their combined efforts. The crops thrived, the animals were healthy, and the fences and buildings were strong. But more importantly, the emotional bonds between them deepened. They celebrated successes together, comforted each other in moments of doubt, and shared laughter and stories in the quiet evenings. The home, once quiet and lonely, was now filled with warmth, love, and a sense of belonging. One quiet evening, as Jack and Eleanor sat watching Lucy ride around the pasture, Eleanor spoke softly. "I never imagined it would turn out like this," she admitted. "I thought I needed someone to help me with the ranch and my daughter. But I found so much more. I found a family." Jack smiled, taking her hand. "And I found a home. I came here a struggling cowboy, unsure of my place in the world, but now I know where I belong."
"Here, with you and Lucy." Lucy rode up to them, jumping off her horse and running to Jack.
"Rise, come on. We have chores to finish, and then I want to show you the new path I made through the orchard." Jack laughed, ruffling her hair. "Lead the way, Lucy." Eleanor watched them, her heart full. The challenges, the storms, the uncertainty, they had all led to this moment. A family had been formed, strong, resilient, and full of love. It was more than a practical arrangement. It was a connection that would endure, built on trust, effort, and shared experiences. As the sun set behind the hills, casting a warm golden glow across the ranch, Jack, Eleanor, and Lucy stood together surveying the land they had worked on and the life they had built. They were a family, not bound by blood, but by choice, dedication, and love. And in that quiet, perfect moment, the struggles of the past felt distant, replaced by the promise of a future filled with hope, togetherness, and joy. Jack Turner, the struggling cowboy, had found more than work or shelter at Eleanor Hayes' ranch. He had found a family, a home, and a purpose beyond anything he had imagined. And as they walked back to the farmhouse together, laughter echoing across the fields, Jack knew one thing for certain. Sometimes the most unexpected challenges lead to the most rewarding outcomes.